And now, Be Insured with Luke Mardigian, presented by Farm Bureau Insurance.
Hello, and thank you for listening. My name is Luke Mardigian, and you are listening to Be Insured, a show where we discuss a variety of topics related to insurance, business, and leadership so you can stay protected while growing a thriving business. How much does mindset have to do with how successful you are in business? If you've been following me over on Facebook or Instagram on the Mardigian Agency, you'll notice we always are sharing Motivational Mondays. And if you know me personally, you know that I'm basically a fanboy of positive psychology. But will having a positive attitude really make you become successful? Believe it or not, your mindset plays a huge role in your ability to accomplish your goals, and that's exactly what we want to talk about today. And I'm very excited because we're joined by three men that have accomplished a lot in their life, some things that most people would consider impossible. And they are
Rob Buffington, associate broker with Berkshire Hathaway.
Eric Gestring, sales manager at the Mardigian Agency.
John Mashni, I'm an attorney at Foster Swift.
What a great crew we have. So, John, not only are you an attorney at Foster Swift, and not only do you have like 18 kids, no, you have four now.
4 kids.
Yeah, I lose track all the time. It seems, but you have a blog that you also keep up on, which I love. And I'm subscribed to, called The Intense Life. And you can follow it at johnmashni.com. But let me ask you, when you talk about mindset and reinvention, do you think the true power of mindset is something that often goes overlooked by most people?
Probably, right? Most people, I think, just don't think about their lives. They don't take the time to reflect and say, hey, why is this happening? Or what's the cause of certain things that have happened? Many times we're in the moment, just like with finances. Most people live paycheck to paycheck. Same thing. Most people live weekend to weekend, and they don't take the time to reflect and think about, well, wait, what's actually going on in my life?
Yeah, I heard that most people spend more time planning a vacation than they do planning their life.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So you know what you're going to do every minute at Disney, but you have no clue where you're going to be in 12 months.
That's right. That's right.
So, Rob, how much did you say mindset has contributed to how successful you've been as a realtor? I mean, particularly in the mid-Michigan market, selling over $20 million, year after year, and in between all that, finding time to go to stuff like SealFit Kokoro and CrossFit and all types of fun stuff. How much has it contributed to your success, and why?
Well, I would say, I too enjoy listening to positive, books or podcasts or whatnot. And one of the things that I've picked up from, one of the podcasts that I listened to was that the most important conversation that you have is the one that you're having with yourself.
Oh, yeah.
And so I'm constantly telling myself about how to improve, things that I can do to get better. Obviously looking to mentors that have helped me along the way and just, seeing how positive they are. I watch and listen to you often, and, I'm just around positive people, which helps me be positive.
Yeah, I love meeting with you because we will puke for like 20 minutes and then we talk about all the awesome things that we got coming up, like right after that. So
right.
You always walk away fueled, and you got rid of all your baggage that nobody else understands, because most people aren't real driven. So Eric, how much, your background, not only were you in the Navy, you were in Navy Special Warfare Group and passed a school, the rescue swimmer school, which
You make it sound way cooler than it is. I was the aviation search and rescue swimmer.
You jumped out of helicopters into the ocean. That is cooler than anything I've done in my entire life. So there's an attrition rate to that school that's like, what, 80 or 90%?
I think it's definitely in the high 70s. We had a rare class, though. We had one of the highest graduating classes in the history of the school, which was pretty impressive.
So how much has mindset contributed to you did something that 80% of the people who try it fail. Like, if we had that type of statistic for driving, nobody would drive. But you showed up and said, sign me up, I want to do that. So how did mindset contribute to your success there?
Yeah, I got to be honest, a lot of the times I was struggling in the pool. I wasn't a swimmer competitively ever in my life. I remember thinking to myself, well, they're not just going to let me drown. So I was like, I'm just going to keep pushing. I remember having tunnel vision during underwater sprints and almost to the point where I'd black out and then I'd surface and get air and it'd come back. But I mean, mindset's huge. You have to understand that this is a special situation and you're going to be a part of something special, and you have to want it more than you don't want it. So
I love it.
Quitting wasn't an option.
Never quit. So for me, I always view mindset as, for most people, they view things that are impossible, and really they're just really hard. It's not impossible. It's just really, really hard to do. And, there's one of the books, I want to say, John, you turned me on to this like 20 years ago, was Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. It's, the book's 120 years old or something like that. One of the main, and in it, he says, one of the main weaknesses of mankind is the average man's familiarity with the word impossible. He knows all the rules which will not work. He knows all of the things which cannot be done. And for me, what I've done in my mindset is I think what hasn't been done, I'm going to go do that. Because, Arnold Schwarzenegger's famous quote, because then when I do it, I'm the first one to ever have done it before. And that's something that drives me. And now I want to show up for the next day. So how should business owners adapt their mindsets to become more positive so that they can get to that winning result?
Well, to me, it's not necessarily trying to be positive, right? I think positivity can be good or bad. I think you got to be realistic and you got to view reality. I think, and here's an example. I was in a meeting one time and the CEO of a company was giving this really rosy outlook of how things were going and proceeding. And at the end, towards the end of the board meeting, one board member basically said, "Hey, if it's so good, why do we got all these problems over here?" He said, "Well, okay." And he kind of backtracked a little bit. And as soon as he showed that there was a problem, it immediately unlocked 3 other board members saying, "Well, if you have that problem here, I've handled that before. Let's do this. Let's do this." So to me, it's not necessarily positive, negative, because there's value in both sides of that. When people bring the viewpoint, it's, are you thinking correctly? And when you're trying to self-assess, it's not necessarily about always being positive. It's about being realistic and understanding. Not can you or can you not do something. That's doubt. It's understanding the reality that's around you and then thinking and becoming self-aware how you fit into it and how your strengths and weaknesses fit into that. So to me, the thinking is absolutely crucial. And you can be hampered by bad thinking. And I think that's ultimately what you're getting at. And you can think about this. I say this to myself, and actually I just wrote this in my journal this morning. What am I wrong about right now? And that is a very scary question to ask yourself. But I guarantee you, if you're stuck in some area of your life, that there's an answer to that question, and you got to figure it out.
And you should be asking yourself then at that point, right?
Yeah, I mean, if great guys, there was a Facebook special last fall, Tom Brady, arguably the best quarterback of all time, right? Depending on who you ask. But with all the success he's had, he's trying to figure out how to make his career longer. I think he wants to go to age 45 is what I heard. And so he hired a coach. And literally in the video, the only thing the coach is telling him is to move his elbow in 2 inches. His left elbow, his non-throwing arm, in 2 inches. And it changed his entire dynamics. And so it's like, what am I doing wrong? Sometimes it's just moving your elbow 2 inches. Sometimes it's the little things, right? It doesn't have to be, what am I doing wrong? I need to change careers or shut my business down or something crazy.
And what's amazing, though, think about that. Would he have figured that out ever on his own?
No, because he's the greatest, right? I mean, he could sit at home and just say, "I'm great. I got all these Super Bowl rings." But he asks, "How can I get better?" He asks that question all the time.
Yeah, and it was another person, which is fascinating, right? So
I'll piggyback on what John said. I think a question that I ask myself often is, what are my limiting beliefs? How am I limiting myself in business, in my relationships, or whatever that is not allowing me to be the best version of myself that I could possibly become? And that, to me, is a real eye opener. Yeah,
for me, one of my biggest self-limiting beliefs is time. Right? We talk about how as business owners we're just pushed for time all the time. And I have a poverty mindset regarding time. I don't have time for that. I don't have time for that. Well, I would do that, but I don't have time for that all the time. I got to change that, right? So it's been a process over the last year, and I'm not all the way through it. I was actually thinking about it this morning. I have a lot to do today, but I got to record a radio show. I don't have time to do X. I don't have time to do Y. And it's those self-limiting beliefs that really prevent you from that kind of that next level that you want to go to.
The helplessness lie.
Right.
Yeah, there's nothing. Yeah. A lot of mindset. You hear it all the time, especially in our society where personal responsibility is kind of a thing of the past, where people just say, "There's nothing I can do about it. I'm helpless." Well, helpless is actually a learned behavior. There's a psychologist at the University of Pennsylvania. His name's Martin Seligman, He's written several books, including Authentic Happiness is probably one of the more popular. And he talks about how helplessness is learned. It's either learned from your parents or learned through situations in life where you just had no control over your outcome. And you can learn to overcome that helplessness and actually know that there are things you can control. And you do have certain aspects of your life that are within your scope of reach.
To me, that's the difference when we say thinking your way to success. The difference to me is there's a stimulus, right? Something happens to us. Most people just respond or react, and there's no gap between those two things. To me, what you're talking about is there's the way to think your way to success is to have something happen and have something in between the stimulus and the response. And that's the thinking. That's whatever you want to call it. The thinking, becoming self-aware, being proactive.
Yeah, thought interdiction.
That gap is the key to me between being successful or not, really.
Absolutely. I completely agree with that. Rob, we talked earlier about how you were able to go out to California to SEAL Fikakoro, which is a 40-hour program designed after Navy SEAL Hell Week. And can you recall a time during that experience where you had to shift your thinking in order to accomplish the next goal or meet the next time hack or whatever they were asking you to do?
Yeah, it was probably about 24 hours in, and I'll associate this with Eric's experience. His career experience we were 5 hours in the pool after 24 hours of nonstop running, rucking.
Do you like to swim?
Not particularly.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
And not for 5 hours straight. But there was one of the instructors kept asking, do you want to give up? There's a warm towel and a hot meal over here.
They
and,
make it sound good. Don't
Yeah.
they?
Yeah, just give up right now. And I just kept swimming. I kind of thought the same thing that Eric said, in that I don't think they'll let me drown, so I'm just going to keep swimming. And I just kept saying there's no quit in me, and that's what I would tell the instructor. And,
You didn't turn into Nemo and just go, just keep swimming. Just keep swimming.
Exactly.
No, that's really good. Yeah, that whole mindset. And, it's funny because in events like that, or, I've done Go Ruck events, Go Ruck Heavies, which are 24-hour events where you're carrying a 30-pound pack plus all your gear and water and, 120-pound sandbag for miles, crazy things. The cadre is like, in that instance, you're so tired that you don't really have a thought because you're just so fatigued and so much pain. But the cadre, the instructors, become the people who are that inner voice that we battle with every day. Don't you just want to quit? Maybe you should just give up this business thing. Your marriage isn't working out. Whatever that lie is that you come to believe, and you have a choice.
Right. And I think it's how we frame different situations that come at us in life, whether that's an experience like that, and I could frame it saying, this is miserable, I don't want to go on, or I can say, you know what, I'm going to grow from this. I'm going to become, like I said earlier, a better version of myself on the other end. And I think any situation, John talked about this earlier, whether positive or negative, we're going to get those experiences in our life, but how do we frame it? How do we use it to grow and just, lead better, run our business better, become a better parent, whatever it is.
Yeah, no, I love it. John, what are some practical tips you'd give our listeners who feel stuck, maybe need to reinvent themselves?
Well, to me, I think being stuck is pretty much happens daily, right? Happens all the time. So I think what I write about and what I've experienced is there's different types of being stuck, right? So one of them is something happened to you and you can't go backwards. And so what do I do now, right? I think I refer to that as like a reactive type of reinvention. There's also the stuck of, hey, I see an opportunity, but I don't know how to go after it. That's a totally different type. And then I think the third type, which I call like a reflective type of reinvention, is where you want to do something you've tried continuously, you just can't do it, but you don't want to quit doing it. You want to make that thing happen. So I think depending on the type that you're in, you have to respond differently. And I'll maybe just give a quick example. I think most of the time, like Rob said, people view something bad happening to them as that this is the end. This is it. I lost, right? And I think there's a great, I actually just wrote an article about this, but there's a great passage from an old Chinese war manual, which it basically said, retreat but never surrender, which means the battle's not over. You can still back up and fight again. And I think that's exactly right. When you have a setback where it seems like you can't go backwards, whether it's in business or your personal life, happens all the time. Someone dies, divorce, business breakup, happens all the time. Just realize, number one, that this is the seed for growth. This is actually how you grow. You're being forced to change.
Mm-hmm.
That to me is the best thing you could tell someone.
I love it.
That was
Reinvention.
awesome.
Reinvention. That was top notch. If you want to hear more about that, johnmashni.com. But I would love to hear from our listeners as well. Do you believe you can think your way into success? Message me with your thoughts on today's show over on Instagram or Facebook, The Mardigian Agency. That's Mardigian, The Mardigian Agency. Thanks, and we'll see you next time on Be Insured.